Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. How many people are on? Hello, Rabbi Kidybinski. How are you?
Good. Baruch Hashem, how are you?
Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem.
So it looks like we have
Anybody else on right now, or just?
Yeah. We have so far 4 people
Hello?
on, and I imagine, I guess probably over the next few minutes, more people are going to come on. I guess.
Yeah.
All right, but I guess let's start.
Do this refuah shlema, the Isa Bas Miriam.
Right. So this is for the refuah shlema of Isa Bat Miriam. And she should have refuah shlema. Should be strong and healthy. Mrs. Hashem.
Amen.
And yeah. So let's start. We're holding by Torah Heh, which is b'chatzotzos v'kol
Torah Heh,
shofar.
yeah.
So on like in the version that I have of Likutei Moharan, the square print, it's on Daf Heh. And anyone else who has a different print, you just turn to b'chatzotzos v'kol shofar. It's Torah Heh in the first chilek of Likutei Moharan at the beginning. So he says like this. He starts off with the pusik, Tehillim b'chatzotzos v'kol shofar, with trumpets and the sound of a shofar. Uri lifnai hamelech Hashem. We will blow. We will make a sound before the King Hashem. So Rebbe Nachman says in Aleph, Kitzurich kol udam loimer kol olam loy nivra ela b'shvili. A person should say that the world was created for my sake. And this is, of course, a very fundamental concept in Penimius Torah, is the idea that we have that the entire world, or really the truth is each person is an olam kut, and each person is a world in and of themselves. Which means that according to the way the Rizal explains it, the reason why every single person has to daven every day. Why is it enough for one person to daven and be yotzi everyone? And why is it that every single individual has to do all the Taryag mitzvahs, or however many they can do in their situation? Is because every person has their own little miniature tikkun of the entire Shvius HaKailim, which that person has to do. And this is the same or equivalent as saying that each person has a section of the whole. Because kol ma sheyesh b'kal yesh b'prat. So many miniature tikkunim is the same as many puzzle pieces of the one big tikkun. It's all the exact same thing. But the point is that everyone has their own avodah, everyone has their own tikkun that they have to make. And because of that, each person can truly look at as if the world that they're experiencing through their senses and through their mind is their own world. And instead of looking at it as one large world where a lot of different people come together, we can look at it as millions and billions of tiny little miniature worlds which are interacting whenever 2 people come into each other's realm. So if 2 people meet each other, or they speak on the phone, or they interact over Zoom or whatever it is, those are worlds coming into contact, which each world is its own world in and of itself. So that's this idea. So he says that, so what comes out of that is nimtze kishaolam nivra b'shvili. If it's true that the world, or at least my world as far as it's concerned, was created for me, then tzurich ani lirais v'la'ayin b'chol eyes b'tikkun ha'olam. A person has to constantly be investigating and searching what he can do to improve the world. Because by definition, possession means responsibility, right? If a person owns a property, then he wants that property to look good. He doesn't want, imagine a person has a house and he lets the yard get overgrown with weeds, and he lets it get totally, look totally messy and terrible and dilapidated. Then it comes out that he looks like a bad balabus. He looks like a bad owner. So the idea is that power and ownership means responsibility. So if we have that the entire world was created for our sake, then we're obligated to do whatever we can do to repair that world, to make that world as better of a place as possible. Because to to fix the problems of the world. To daven for those problems, right? Like we talked about, really, we mentioned this last week, this idea that a person is really, when he's davening, the idea is that a person should be davening to Hashem because of the tzara Shechina. He shouldn't be davening for his own problems, he should be davening for the problems of the Shechina. And the problems of the Shechina really means all the problems of the world. And your problems and everyone's problems are included within that. So if a person davens for the tzara Shechina and for the tikkun of those problems that we have in the world, it will be a tikkun for each of our individual problems as well. So he says, there's two different beginnes in tefillah. Before there's a gzar din, in other words, when things seem normal and we don't see that there's any kind of a gzaira coming upon the Klal Yisrael.
What? Yes, in here too.
Then we just daven regular.
Sure.
So we daven with the Seder tefillah like that we're used to, of the 3 tefillahs a day, Shachas, Mincha, Maariv, and so on. And that tefillah can go up regular, and we don't have to conceal that tefillah in any way. But once there's a gzar din, chas v'shulam, there's some kind of a gzaira that's hanging upon the Klal Yisrael, then tzurich lahalbish hatefillah, we have to conceal the tefillah. That the maluchim they're standing on the left side shouldn't notice that. Again, they shouldn't be mekatrik. There's a famous thing that it says in the Medrushim, it talks about in the Sifrei Haichulas, that there's maluchim that stand on the right and on the left of Hashem. And then the Medrash asks, what do you mean on the right and on the left? Hashem doesn't have a right, doesn't have a left. Hashem is Mloichel Eretz Kavoidai. So the answer is that the maluchim on the right means the maluchim of Rachamim, the maluchim on the left means the maluchim of Din. In other words, not talking about physical positions, we're talking about spiritual positions. So those maluchim on the left are the maluchim of Din. And those maluchim, when there's a gzaira, then those maluchim want gzaira to be manifest, so they don't want our tefillahs to go through. Because of that, if they know that we're davening, and they know that we have tefillahs that are going through, they'll try to annul those tefillahs. Because of that, when there's a time of din, we have to conceal our tefillahs in such a way that these maluchim shouldn't be able to take charge of them. So he says, like it says in the posting in Daniel, Begzairis Irin Pisgomen. So this is the first part of the pusik. Daniel, at least portions of Daniel written in Aramish. So this is in Aramish. Begzairis with the gzaira of the Irin. The Irin is a type of malach. Things happen, Pisgomen, things happen according to the judgment of the Irin, of the maluchim. So because of that, we see that he says, when there is a gzaira, then these maluchim of din control what's going on. And then b'mamar kadishin she'altin, and with the words of the kadishin, also maluchim, literally, in the pusik, is she'altin, is the things we ask for, our bakushas, are in the hands of kadishin. But the way Rebbe Nachman learns it is, azay had tzadikim malbishim she'altam b'mamar. So he's learning that this kadishin here isn't going on angels, it's going on tzaddikim, and he's saying that when there is a time of gzar din, then the kadishin, the tzaddikim, have to conceal their bakushas in a maimer. So it'll look like they're just saying regular things, but really they're concealing a tefillah in this. And this is a concept that we see many times by tzaddikim, and the truth is the Gemara says already, that sichas chilin shel tamid chachomim tzrichim ian, that even the simple, regular seeming words that tzaddikim say need investigation, in the sense that they're not really just simple words. There's really deeper things going on behind this. Like if you look at the Noam Melech at the beginning of Parshas Vayishlach, he talks about this, that in the whole idea of when Yaakov sent out the Maluchim to Esav, then in everything he was sending out, he was being meramis tefillas in every single thing. And this is what tzaddikim do. Sometimes tzaddikim, there's all these stories of tzaddikim like this. The tzaddikim would seem to be talking about regular things, and really their intentions were on higher things. Like it's famous that the Rav Chaim Rucha had a daughter, Malka. That was one of the Rebbitzins now. not sure which one, but he would always use, and he always, whenever he would speak to her, this is famous. He would say it because usually, when a Rebbe especially is talking to his daughter, he's not going to make a whole big public thing out of it. But here it would be when the Gabon would be here, when the people would be here, it would be around him. He would say, Malka, give me what I need. And of course, he'll be giving Ramas to Hashem. Hashem's the Malka, the Melech, the king of the entire universe, and the Hashem should bring him whatever he needs. Or if he would be in a house and he would be on the first floor, and then there would be someone else on the floor above, so he would say some kind of a joke, something like, "Der von oven, the one from above, the one from literally from the floor above, should come and participate in the Seder," or whatever it was that he was being Isaac in. And of course, he meant that Hashem Kivyuchel, the one from oven, the one from above, should manifest in this Mamad as well. And there was many, many, many things like this that he would say, where he'll be malabish in regular types of words, remuzim to Hashem and to Tfilis and to so on and so forth. And this is what literally what Rebbe Nachman is talking about here, that sometimes when there is a time of din, and we know that the Maluchim, which are against us, are standing there to annul the Tfilis, not allow the Tfilis to go through, then what we can do to allow our Tfilis to go through is to conceal them in regular words, in simple words, and that way the Maluchim aren't going to know what's going on, and we can send those Tfilis through. Agav, it says the same idea is with Aramaic, with Aramish, which we know that a lot of certain Tfilis, especially Kaddish, we know, and certain Tfilis are in Aramish, and then we have that certain, the whole Gemara is written in Aramish, the Zohar Kodesh is written in Aramish, in Aramaic, and Sfurim talk about this idea, that also the idea is that the Maluchim shouldn't understand, because the Maluchim speak Lushan Kodesh. So the Maluchim, when we say something in Lushan Kodesh, they know what we're saying. If you want to get it through without the Maluchim Kivyuchel noticing what's going on, then we say it in Aramish. And in Aramish, it's they don't know how to make sense of that, and so we can get through more easily. I once heard a pshat on this. Now we're approaching Pesach soon. And the Chad Gadya is very much like this. The Chad Gadya is a tefillah of the Ge'ilah. The whole thing is a remez of the Gulasin that the Yidden went through, and the Ge'ilah which is coming. And the whole thing is set up like a silly little children's rhyme in Aramaic, which doesn't seem to have any real depth to it. But the truth is it really has very infinite depth to it, which is why we say it by the Pesach Seder after the entire Seder. Do we get that tefillah through without the Maluchim noticing what's going through? So this is the idea that he's talking about here. So he says now in Bais, how do we know if we're holding before the din was goizer or after a din was goizer? In the sense, sometimes we can get a sense of it, like now, obviously, something's going on. We can see that we're exiled in our houses, and we're not able to go to shul and not able to see our friends, and so on and so forth. We see that something's going on, but a lot of times there might be a din that's hanging, and we don't know that it's hanging yet because it hasn't actually manifested. So how do we know if there was exile or not?
Rebbe, question?
Yeah.
But this is happening to the whole world. It's just not happening to the Yidden. So do we get din like the rest of the world, or is there a separation, or how does that work?
So I'll tell you, it says, the Gemara says about a Megaifa, about a plague, that at a time of a Megaifa, there's no difference whether a person is a tzaddik or a rusha. Once the mashchis, once the malach, the samach mem has been allowed to come out and be mekatrik, then it doesn't matter. A person's chisim don't count, right? A person has to do every ishtadlus that he can do to protect himself. So, in this sense, we see very clearly that the Yidden are not immune to this, right? And tzaddikim aren't immune to this. So we shouldn't get any sense of, that we have a schiz, so we're going to be okay. We are going to be okay, Bez Hashem, and we are okay, but we have to do our part, and we have to do our hishtadlus to keep ourselves safe. And that's based on whatever recommendations the doctors and Hatzulah and so on give us, what we should do. So, yeah, that's basically the thing. And there is sometimes a Gzar Din that's only on the Klal Yisrael, and there's sometimes a Gzar Din that's on the entire world, or even only on the non-Jewish nations. I remember one time, I think I might have mentioned this before, but there's a very special Yid in Bobov in Borough Park. His name is Reb Chaim Dovid Blum. Reb Chaim Dovid Blum is, I've never met really such a tzaddik, such a unav as he is. He makes himself like he's nothing. And he davens extremely long, and he cries by davening. He's very, very special. So I remember one time when I still lived in Borough Park, this was years ago, I saw him like crying on Rosh Hashanah, and which really the result says everyone should cry on Rosh Hashanah, but most of us aren't on that level nowadays. But I came over to him and I asked him like in a very respectful way, if maybe he could share me something so I could also have a Hisoris on Rosh Hashanah. And he said he was just crying and tears were streaming down his face, and he was just told me, I was just imagining now that imagine if the Maluchim, there's a Malach in charge of every nation. So imagine if the Malach in charge of Somalia or one of these countries where people are starving is coming up to the Kisei HaKovid now and asking Hashem, please give me Parnusa for this year for the people under my care. And Hashem says, I'm sorry, I can't. And the Malach goes away with such embarrassment and such sadness, and everyone in his nation is going to be starving, and people are going to be dying, and this Malach just goes away so tzibrochen and so devastated. And then he said, and how can I think about that and not cry? Right? So Gzar Din, we see by the Shira, we see that the Chazal tell us that the Meluchim wanted to sing Shira when Hashem was drowning the Mitzvah in the Yam, and Hashem said to Meluchim, Masa Yudai Tovim Bayam V'atum Shira. My creations are dying, and you want to sing to me now. Hashem created everything, and everything has a purpose. So, like the Gemara says we have to, even if there's a Gzar Din that's not on us, even the Gzar Din is only on the Goyim, ultimately it reflects that there's an imperfection in the world. And the Goyim themselves also, Bez Hashem and Tzich, will be able to fulfill their tachlis, and that's to help the Klal Yisrael in doing their avodah. And the whole reason why the Goyim aren't doing their tachlis now is just because of us and our sins, like the Zohar Kodesh tells us in many places. So the idea is that every tzar is a tzar for Klal Yisrael. But especially when it's affecting Klal Yisrael directly as well, then especially it's clear that we have to do our part and try to be mamtik the din. And through these shirim, and through Bez Hashem, later this week, I want to find a time that will be good for everyone, and maybe just say the Mimbais Masuas together, which is part of the tikkun that I sent out for Megaifa. There's one part of that is the 42 journeys of the Klal Yisrael in the desert, which is a tikkun for Megaifa. I want Bez Hashem, at some point we should say that together as a tzibur over Zoom, and hopefully it'll have an effect. I just want to ask, please, anybody who is in any sort of a noisy type of an environment, just please mute your thing, and you can unmute it if you want to say something. That way we won't have any background interference. Okay, so that's basically the idea. So how do we know before a din has actually been openly manifest? How do we know if it's before the Gzar Din or afterwards? Right, this is in section Bais already. So he says, says Aval Eich Yadin and Bain Koden Gzar Din L'Acher Gzar Din Adei HaMitzvah Shuni Oisim. Just through the mitzvahs that we do, Yichodem Anachni Laida Ben Koden Gzar Din L'Acher. So he says that a person can get to the level where he can tap into whether there's a Gzar Din on the world or not. And that is through mitzvahs, he says. We're going to explain more barichas. He says, "V'dafka she'oisna ha-mitzvahs b'simcha gedoyle kol kach, asher ein roitzen b'shem schar oilam haba." It has to be, yes, it has to do with doing the mitzvahs, but it has to do with doing the mitzvahs in such a way that we should be doing them with such simcha that we don't desire any schar for the mitzvah, any schar oilam haba. Elahi roitze sheyazm le'kodesh baruch hu mitzvah acheres b'schar mitzvah zoy. That we want that Hashem should give us another mitzvah as the reward for this mitzvah. In other words, this is going, of course, into the whole idea of mitzvahs.
Rabbi, I'm very sorry to interrupt. You can mute everybody on your own screen if you take a look at this system. It's there somewhere. I'm not sure exactly, but I know it's there.
Okay. I mean, I don't really see where to do it. If there's a mute button, but I think I'll just mute myself, there's no point. Okay. So everyone please just mute yourselves. I see everyone's muted now, basically. Except Tzvi. Okay, I see I'm muted. Tzvi, I'm gonna mute you. Don't get offended. You can unmute yourself whenever you need to. Okay, there we go. Okay. So basically the idea over here is that we're talking about a certain level of avoida. So we know that we actually discussed this in previous shirim, the idea that there is different levels of serving Hashem. So of course there's a level on which a person serves Hashem and he wants the schar and he doesn't want the oynish. And the reason why he's not doing an avayra and the reason why he is doing a mitzvah is because he wants the schar and not the oynish. So there is a level like that. And of course, all the Sfurim tell us that level is just the starting point, just a springboard, because the person has to eventually get to the level where he wants to serve Hashem regardless of whether he gets schar or not. And the schar is really not important, right? Like kaviyuch, like you have like with little kids, right? So you want them to bench or to daven, so you say, I'll give you a chocolate chip or something, whatever it is. I'll give you some little prize for that. And that's the kid's whole incentive. Obviously, hopefully, Bez Hashem, when they get older, they're going to want to bench and they're going to want to daven just because they want to connect to Hashem. They're not going to want it just for the chocolate chip, right? But that's how you start off. So the same thing as the schar and oynish. Schar and oynish is really something at the beginning of avodas Hashem, but it should get to the level a person doesn't really care about the schar and the oynish anymore, and the reason why he serves Hashem is not because of that, because what's the difference if he's in Gehenna or in Gan Eden? What he really wants is he wants to make a tikkun in the world, and like we said, if the whole world is created in your sake, then especially you have such an achrayus to take care of it, right? So that's the ultimate goal, and the schar and oynish is only like a little starting thing. And he's alluding here to the idea where it says schar mitzvah, that a person should really get to the level where all he wants is just the schis to do mitzvahs. And for one mitzvah he says, you know what, Hashem, I don't really need the olam haba. Just give me the schis to do another mitzvah. And that is the highest level of avoida. It's interesting because in Pirkei Avos it says you shouldn't be like avudim. I don't remember exactly. Avudim hamisham shemesarav almanas lekabel pras. You shouldn't be like people who serve the master in order to receive a reward, but you should rather be kavudim shemisham shemesarav shaloy almanas lekabel pras, not in order to have a reward. And I remember that the Baba Varuv once mentioned in a shir a very interesting different girsa, where there actually is a girsa in the Pirkei Avos that you should be avudim shemesham shenesarav al menas shaloi lekabel pras. So not only is it that you don't ask for a reward, but you serve Hashem al menas, you don't want the reward. You tell Hashem, oh yeah, there you go, that's the yeah. So you should be al menas not to receive a reward. Specifically, you tell Hashem, I don't want the reward. And this is really the idea with the Baal Shem Tov, where it was famous when the Baal Shem Tov learned that he was put into Chayrim, and the Baal Shem Tov said that now I can really serve Hashem be'emes, because until now I might have been worried about Olam Haba and getting schar and so on and so forth, but someone who's in Chayrim can't get and doesn't get any Olam Haba, so now Baruch Hashem, now I can serve Hashem Lishma, right? Which is obviously a tremendous level. But again, this is what Rebbe Nachman's talking about here. The person needs to get to that level of serving Hashem, not for the reward and not even wanting the reward. The reward should be just the experience of being a part of that te'elis and being part of that tikkun olam and the siyas mitzvahs. So he says, Right, because Kamamar Chazal, like Chazal says, Schar mitzvah, that the reward for a mitzvah should be a mitzvah itself. Ki nehenem a mitzvah ba'atzma, because he's nehenem from the mitzvah itself. And this being nehenem from the mitzvah is, of course, the idea of the dvaikas the person experiences during the mitzvah. Because we know that schar mitzvah is b'hai al maleka. Chazal tell us that you can't be nehene from the schar of a mitzvah in this world. But that's gifa what Rebbe Nachman is talking about. We're not trying to be nehene from the schar. We want to be nehene from the mitzvah itself, which is, of course, like we've talked about many times, that this is one of the main machlokes between the chassidim and the misnagdim, where the chassidim said that the ikar of Avodas Hashem is the dvaikas, and to get to that level of dvaikas through the mitzvahs. And the misnagdim objected that, and they said that, well, then that's not lishma, because lishma is to do a mitzvah just because Hashem said so. To do it for dvaikas is just another pniya, like any other taiva that a person has. But then the chassidim said, no, dvaikas is the goal, because dvaikas to b'shefer is not just, it's not a tava, it's the neshama is going back to its shoirish and connecting to, to where it's supposed to be. So that's this idea. Al kol punim, so he says, back to the text here, says, Kihi nehene mitzvah ba'atzma, he's nehene from the mitzvah itself and not from the schar. V'zei achilik sh'bayin nevias Moshe Rabbeinu levayin nevias shar neviim. This is the difference between Moshe Rabbeinu's neviah, the neviah of the other neviim. Compares Rashi, like Rashi learns, this is famous Rashi, Vaydaber Moshe Arosha Matas, Zeh Adov Asher Tzivu Hashem. The Moshe Rabbeinu said to the Shvutim, this is the Zeh Hadover, this is the word Asher Tzivu Hashem, which Hashem commanded. So Perish Rashi learns, Kol Neviim, this Navi, Bekoy Umar Hashem. All the Neviim, they start the Nevias with Koy Umar Hashem, thus speaks Hashem. Nois Valai Moshe, Shes Nabe Zeh Hadover. Right, so it seems from the Rashi like Koi Umar Hashem, thus speaks Hashem is a lower level, and Zeh Hadover, this is the thing that Hashem said is a higher level. So Rebbe Nachman explains, Ki b'chinas Koi, he is paklari sha'ayim here. The word Koi, thus speaks Hashem, is like a lens that's not clear. I'm going to explain in a second. Zeh Hadover, and this is the word that Hashem said. He bechinas is b'kayamir. This is the level of a lens that is clear. So the idea here is that if you say, let's say I'm trying to tell you what, for example.
I know who this is.
Okay, if anyone can just mute their thing so we can. Okay, there you go. All right. So basically, the idea is that if I want to tell you over something, let's say Rebbe Nissim told me a Dvar Torah, so then I can tell everyone, oh, this is what Rebbe Nissim told me. Then I can say it, or I can say this is the exact speech that Rebbe Nissim said, and here it goes. Right, so the second way is much more credible than the first way. The first way could sound like I'm paraphrasing. The second way is much clearer that this is the exact thing that he gave over to me. This is what the exact thing that he told me. That is much stronger, much more powerful. So the idea is that the other Nevi'im, their Nevi'ah was with Koyim Hashem. This is what Hashem said. But Moshe Rabbeinu said, Zeh HaDover, this is the exact Dover that Hashem said. Moshe Rabbeinu's Bechin is much clearer. And the Zohar Kodesh talks about these two levels, and Zohar Kodesh uses this expression that the Rebbe Nachman uses here of Ispeklaria HaMeira, Ispeklaria HaInamira. Ispeklaria is like I think a Greek word, and it means like a lens. I'm assuming it's probably related to the word spectacle or spectator, right? To these words that we have, which means to see, right, or to see or vision. But the idea is that it's something that you look through. So like imagine a person that has glasses, and the glasses could be clean or the glasses could be dirty, right? So if a person's looking through clean glasses, then he sees everything clearly. But if the glasses are like, his kids just had their hands all over them and they have all these fingerprints all over them, then he can't, until he spritzes them up with something and washes them and cleans them out, he's not going to be able to see so clearly. So the idea is that in Neviah, in vision of Kedusha, there are also different levels. There's a vision of the other Nevi'im, which is not so clear. They saw some sort of an image, but it's not clear exactly. Moshe Rabbeinu saw clearly. You have this idea, the Zohar is medayik in Yechezkel, where Yechezkel basically, he saw Olam Atzilus, because Yechezkel, in the first parak of Yechezkel, it starts off with he saw these levels of the three klippos Tamayas. He saw the Riach Seura and the Aish Mislahakas and what's it called, and the what else? And the Unan Gudel and the great cloud. So those are the klippos. Then he saw a Noiga, a kind of a brightness, which is klippos Noiga, and then he's describing the oilmas of Kedusha. So basically he saw Oifanim, which are like wheels, which are connected to Olam Asiyah. Then he saw Maluchim, which these Maluchim are Chayes HaKodesh, which is connected to Yitzira. And then the Maluchim are holding up this Merkava, this throne, this Kisai, which is connected to Olam Abriya. And then you have Kivyuchel, whatever it is, the image sitting on the throne, which represents the spheres of Atzilus. And the Zohar is medayik that it says over there that Yechezkel saw Kid Mis Murai Udam. He saw like a vision of a person. So the Zohar is medayik that he saw Atzilus. Atzilus would be the Bechinas Udam, but it's Ki Dmis Marai Udam. He saw it 3 levels removed. He was looking from Asiya. So it was like a vision of a vision. So like is Keneged Asiya. A vision is Keneged Yitzira. Of a vision is Keneged Bria. Of a Udam is Keneged Atzilus. So we saw Atzilus, but through all these different layers, through many different, he was very removed from it. He saw it from very far away. Kiviyuchel. Moshe Rabbeinu, the Rizal tells us that he was connected to Olam Abriya till Rosh Abriya. The Rizal tells us that no person has ever seen Atzilus, even though some people get confused with this because in the Shara Gilgilim, the Rizal tells us that there are neshumas, which the shorish of those neshumas is in Atzilus, but it's 2 different things because the shorish of neshama could be from Atzilus, but a person can't actually bechayav have any sort of a direct vision of Atzilus. But Moshe Rabbeinu was connected the entire Bria. Maybe his neshama couldn't enter Atzilus, but he could see Atzilus clearly, like from the top of Bria. Like imagine he's standing Kivyuchel in Keser of Bria, and he's just looking up, just 1 level up is Atzilus already. So the idea is that Moshe Rabbeinu's vision was much clearer and much purer than that of the other Nevi'im. And so that's basically the idea. So the Rizal tells us, so the Zohar compares this to the idea that Moshe Rabbeinu was looking through like a clear lens, and the other Nevi'im were looking through an unclear lens. So he says over here that Koi, the way the other Nevi'im speak, that's he is Peklai Sha'alimir, that's like an unclear lens. V'zeh Hadover, which Moshe Rabbeinu says, Zeh B'chinas is Peklai Me'ir, that's like a clear lens. So he says, V'ali Hashtai B'chinas Nevi'as, these 2 levels of Nevi'as, Yesh B'avodas HaBoira. Yes, these are levels of Nevi'ah, which none of us, or I don't know, I can't speak for anybody else, but at least for me, I've never actually experienced any Nevi'ah. But those same 2 levels can also be in Avodas Hashem in a general sense as well. Right? So he says, Yesh Udam Ha'oiseh Mitzvah B'schar Olam Haba. There are those people that do a mitzvah because they're waiting for their schar in the next world. He doesn't actually enjoy the mitzvah itself. In other words, this is talking about this beginner's level, where a person doesn't necessarily have fun davening 3 times a day, doesn't necessarily have fun, keeping Shabbos or whatever it is, but he's doing it because he wants the schar. So he's not enjoying the mitzvah itself, but he wants the schar. But if it wouldn't be he's getting schar b'olam haba, so he wouldn't do it. If someone just told him, just do it just for, just because you're a good guy, he would say, leave me alone. I want to have fun. I don't want to do these things, right? So he's not yet on the level of appreciating the mitzvah. So this is like the level that Chazal talk about. There's some people that Torah is for them a sam muvas. There's some people that the Torah is a sam chaim. The Torah is like life potion for them. It gives them their entire meaning in the world and their entire life force, and they just love it. Then other people, it's a samuvas. The Torah is something that makes them bitter, and they don't like it, they don't enjoy it. But they do what they do because they want the schar.
But how about the sweetness of Torah? I mean, I just read a word someplace that, we have to have the sweetness of Torah. Even if we don't understand it, there's something sweet about it. So what do we say about the people the negative people that the Rebbe just mentioned? Why can't they can't even hop some of the sweetness, how beautiful Shabbos is, or how beautiful it is to help somebody, chesed? Or
Right.
we're just talking about people that just can't for whatever reason.
Right. No, so we searching people, the reason why we have these shirim, and the reason why we learn Penimius Torah is because we're searching people. So our neshamas are more sensitive. So for us, a lot of times it's hard to understand how someone could even not enjoy a davening or enjoy a Shabbos or so on. But unfortunately, there are a lot of people like that. And it has to do with shorish neshamas. It has to do, if you ever learn Shar Gilgilim, you'll see that this idea of Gilgilim is so complex. And literally, there's all these neshamas coming down. There's all these different cheshbonis, why they're coming down. And sometimes there's a nefesh that needs a tikkun, so it comes down with a different person's riach and neshama, because it borrows them for a while. And then there's that idea that the gairim, for example, converts, they're like a vehicle for riches and neshamas, which need a tikkun, which come from higher levels of people, from tzaddikim. And you have all these different complicated cheshbonis, what neshamas coming down here. So not all neshamas are on the same level. Some neshamas are more sensitive and others aren't. And I imagine part of that has to do also with the way they conduct themselves, because the more that a person tries to be Mekadosh himself and be holy, the more sensitive he is to holiness. And conversely, it says that the first time a person does an avara, he feels terrible, and the second time he starts getting used to it already. And the third time it doesn't affect him anymore. A lot of times a person can get desensitized. And this has to do with a lot of different things, like we talked about before in this shir. He talks about the fact that listening to music, which is not from Er L'Chayid, not from Yireh Shamayim, can affect a person negatively in a spiritual sense, unless he learns Torah Shabbat Pei at night. That was Rebbe Nachman's chiddush in, I think, Torah Gimel, I think. But the idea is that a lot of things affect this. A lot of things affect the person's closeness. And we can't judge anyone, because we can't put ourselves in their shoes, because they're having a totally different experience of it than we are. And I think everyone connects to certain things. So you see, like, some people, they don't know what to do by davening, because they don't have zitzfleisch for the davening, but they might be a big balei chesed, or they might work for Hatzolah, or something else. So you have that there's some sort of a balance in this way that everyone finds like their thing that they connect to. But some people have an easier time connecting than others, right? So here we're talking about people who haven't yet gotten to that level of connecting be'emes. The only thing that fuels them is this idea, I'm going to get schar for this. Or chas v'sholom, that if it's an avira, if I do this, I'm going to get an oynish, so I'd rather not do it. So that's the first level, he says. And he says, that's at this level of koi, which is the level of a glass or a lens. It's not clear. Like someone is looking for something that's very far away, so it's not so clear. So too, he's doing the mitzvah not because he's enjoying the mitzvah experience right now, but because of something that's far away from the future, for the future schar that he's trying to accumulate. He says, and that's after Olam Hazeh. That's going to be already in the next world where he gets that schar. V'shilam schar nikra b'shem novi. And this idea of getting that schar, so because Rebbe Nachman's learning this, avodas Hashem is related to these levels in Nevi'as. So he said this idea of getting schar is called the novi. Kirashitayvis shel, because the Rosh is the pusik, yuvay berina noise alimoisaf is novi. Right? So this is in the Shir Malas that we say before benching. And over there we say, he's going and walking and crying and schlepping the seeds to sow. and that's like at the beginning. And then Yuvoy Verin and Noisei, then he comes back singing, and his he's carrying his sheaves. That's finally the fruits of his labors. So that's an analogy to Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba. And Olam Hazeh, especially in the Gulas, we could be walking around crying and crying about how much avodah we have to do. But then in the end, we get to that level where we're happy and we're thankful that we're able to cultivate that kavyuchal, that grain, and then reap it in the end. So that's this idea. So he says the Yuvoy Brina Noisei Lamaisav is a Shetaivas Nuvi. So V'Shem Sham bePusik Hazeh, in that Pusik Nirmiz al Shilim Schar, it's talking about getting schar. He's walking and crying and schlepping the seeds. Shemitztar Basiyu, so he's kavyuchal. You see this? We're talking about someone who's mitztar from doing a mitzvah. He doesn't enjoy it, right? So it's a headache for him, right? And then boy Yuvay Brina Noisei Lemaisa, but then he's going to come back b'simcha when he finally gets to reap that. Sheyismach le'osa, he'll be happy in the future because he kabels schar mitzvah when he gets the schar for the mitzvah. So it says Rosh Taivas shel Yuvoy Berina Noisei Lemaisa is Rosh Taivas Novi. That's at level of the lower level of the Nevi'is. Aval Novi shemis nabe bezei hadover, but the other thing is Moshe Rabbeinu, which is a Novi, that his Nevi'is is in zei hadover, which is, again, we said that's the Spekai Hamir, that's the more explicit vision. She'ayne roitze b'schar mitzvah. That's talking about someone who doesn't want the schar for the mitzvah. El roitze b'mitzvah ba'atzma, he wants the mitzvah itself. She'im misamayach kol kach b'asiyus. He's so besimcha from doing the mitzvah. At shemamas b'chol min schar. It's adrabah. He's disgusted. The solution here by schar. He's like, Hashem, leave me alone. Don't give me schar for this. Let me just enjoy the mitzvah itself. Don't ruin it for me by giving me schar, right? And he says, "V'nimtza she'olam haba shaloi b'hamitzvah ba'atzah." So his olam haba isn't some future thing. His olam haba is in the siyas mitzvah itself, which goes into another idea that the Zohar talks about a lot. The Zohar says that olam haba translates the olam that is coming. The Zohar tells us this. It said, I remember the exact allusion, Alma the Asida, the Azla, or something along those lines. It's something that's constantly coming and coming. That means olam haba. It doesn't say olam sheyuvoy. Olam sheyuvoy is future tense. That would mean the world that will come. But olam haba is the world that is coming constantly. And the Chassidish Surim talk about this. What the Zohar means to say with this is that the olam haba experience is something that can be experienced right now. Something we sort of alluded to last week's year. The idea that what's it called? That a person can be in Ge'ila even though he's in Gulas, right? Because the idea is that it's a mindset. So a person can tap into olam haba right now, boilam hazeh, and that is through this idea that we're talking about. If a person really is medabek to the essence of each mitzvah, the mitzvah itself is olam haba experience right here, right now. So he's getting his schar, he's getting his olam haba while he's doing the mitzvah, right? And he doesn't have to wait for some future time to get the schar. So he says, that's a type of a novi, it's another type of a schar, this very thing, this very mitzvah itself is the schar, is the dvar Hashem, is the connection to Hashem. Which is this of this shining lens, like this clear lens. Like someone who sees something from close by. And then his sight is clear and pure. He's neheneh from the mitzvah itself. And his schar is right here, right now. He sees it right now. He doesn't have to wait for the future to get that schar. Someone who's on this level, he's able to do a mitzvah with such simcha, that he doesn't want any schar in olam haba. That kind of a person, that person is the person that has that spiritual sensitivity to be able to see where the world is holding, if it's a time of gazar din or not. Because that's really what it's about. It's about a spiritual sensitivity. If a person feels that or of Shabbos, and he feels that or while he's doing a mitzvah, and it's sweet to him and it's beautiful to him, that means he has a certain spiritual sensitivity. That spiritual sensitivity will then allow him to be able to see what the situation of the world is, assuming that he gets to that level. So that kind of person can see if it's a time of a Gezar Din or not a time of Gezar Din. So he says, Ki mitzvahs hem koima shleima, because the mitzvahs are like a structure. And this is this idea that we have that the Rizal tells us this. Well, the truth is, Zohar tells us. Well, the truth is, Chazal tells us all over the place already. Really, that there's Ramach mitzvahs essay, v'shusu mitzvahs lois essay. There's 365 lois essays, and there's 248 mitzvahs essays, which combine to be the amount of body parts in the human body. So Kiviyuchel, the Zohar tells us that the mitzvahs are ivrim, the ivrim malka, that the mitzvahs are the ivrim of the king Kiviyuchel, which of course refers to their anpin of Atzilus. That each mitzvah is a chaylik of their anpin of Atzilus, and when we do that mitzvah, we're masak and that nitzitz from the Shviras HaKailim, because the Zeranpin is connected to the 7 lower spheres, which had their Shvira during the Shviras HaKailim, and every mitzvah is masak an aspect of that. So here we could come back to what we were talking about at the very beginning. That each person has their own miniatures, their Anpin, to be misakin, which really is just one part of the Kluzdik as their Anpin. So my tefillin is making a tikkun in a different place than the Rabbi Yisrael's mitzvah tefillin is doing, and the Avi Pozlin's mitzvah tefillin is doing, and so on and so forth. Everyone has their chalik, they're being misakin. But ultimately, the idea is that the mitzvahs together form a complete structure. And if you take every mitzvah of every individual, then together that makes up the entire Shviras HaKailim and all the nitzotzes that fell. And doing all that is the tikkun of all that, bringing everything back up. So he says, so the idea is that the mitzvahs are koima shleima, the mechayin is called hakoimas, and the mitzvahs, since the mitzvahs represent a koima, structure, so the mitzvahs are mechaya, each structure, everything that exists in all the worlds. Hein koimas udam, both a structure of a human being, hein koimas oilam, and so to the structure of the world, and koimas shuna. So the idea he's alluding to over here is that in Sefer Yetzirah tells us, and he says in the next line, Ki oilam shuna nefesh, that there's 3 levels, oilam, shuna, and nefesh. And the Sefer Yetzirah mentions this. The Sefer Yetzirah tells us that basically there's 3 different playing fields, if you want, or battlegrounds where we have to do a tikkun. And that's in the level of oilam, which is in the physical world, which is the world of space, in other words. And then there's shuna, which is the world of time. Then there's nefesh, which nefesh is the rachnius. And these 3 levels we're working on all 3 of these levels when we do Torah and mitzvahs. So basically, there's a koima, there's a structure of a person, and that's connected b'chinas nefesh, because each of us is on the neshama, and that's really a structure in the neshama itself. We said before, the human body is connected to Torah mitzvahs, but really then it's the neshama that's connected to Torah mitzvahs, and the human body is just patterned according to the neshama because the body has to house the neshama. So the idea is that in the neshama there's Tayag mitzvahs, and so there's a structure there. And the mitzvahs are connected to that structure in each human being. And then there's the structure of the world, or not just the physical world, but all the oilamas. And the structure of all the oilamas is also the same structure. In other words, you could look at all the oilamas also at the beginning of 10 spheres, where oilam udam kadman would be like the keser, and oilam and chachma would be like the atzilus, and bria would be like the binah, and the next 6 spheres would be like the Yitzira, and the Malchus would be like the Asiya. So you can look at all the Oilamas as one structure of 10 spheres, or also of Taryag Chalukim. And then you can look at time also as a bechina of Taryag Chalukim. And so because of that, we have tikkunim that we do in all 3 of these levels. And the mitzvahs are misak on all of these levels. So by doing the mitzvahs properly, we're repairing the world on all of these shlavim, both on the level of the world of space and the world of time and the world of the neshama. So he says, so all these levels, mekablan chiyas ma'amitzvahs, k'mashikus, like it says in the pusik, v'chol masayeh be'minah, all your actions should be be'minah. V'chsiv, and it says, kol mitzvahs seichel, all the mitzvahs are a minah. So in the sense that the mitzvahs are basically the structure of everything. And minna, or the Zohar calls it mehemnisa, refers to the whole setup of all the oilamas. So the mitzvahs themselves are the structure of that setup. So we do the mitzvahs, we're being misaken all the oilamas. So he says, "V'Hakadosh Baruch he achdas pushet ima mitzvahs." Hashem is united with all the mitzvahs, like we said, because Hashem manifests to us or interacts with us through the bechina of Zer Anpin, and the mitzvahs are by definition are the gift kavyuchol, the ivorim of Zer Anpin. So therefore, we connect to Hashem through the mitzvahs, and the mitzvahs and Hashem is kavyuchol zahay nahach, because Hashem's flowing through those mitzvahs to manifest to us. And when the actions of Hashem kiviyuchol are everything's working out in the proper way, then Hashem has a joy kiviyuchol and a pleasure from this. When Shekusa, like says in the Pusa, Yismach Hashem b'masav, Hashem enjoys His creations. So kiviyuchol, this idea that Hashem has a nachas riach. Hashem has certain joy kiviyuchol from us doing the roots in Hashem, for us doing the mitzvahs. Because Hashem knows each of us very well. Hashem knows that He created us with a nature which is not conducive to being tamed. The nature of a person wants to be free and wants to be wild and wants to do whatever it wants. And so the idea of us taming ourselves and subjecting ourselves to a discipline and working on ourselves is of tremendous nachas riach to Hashem kiviyuchol. Like imagine kiviyuchol, a contemporary mushal, if someone invented these little AI robots. They have their own like little artificial intelligence. And at first he puts them in a little cage or something, and at first they're all just bumping into each other. But then eventually they figure out how to make a society and how to make rules and make laws and how to do things. That scientists who invented them would be at the top of the world with simcha, kiviyuchol, because it's so amazing that they actually were able to get to that level. So too, kiviyuchol, and we're saying kiviyuchol because we can't really attribute any joy or emotion or anything to Hashem, because Hashem is far beyond any description. But in a certain sense, we can say that Hashem has kaviyuchol joy and nachas to see us working on ourselves and elevating ourselves and going against our basic natures in this way. So kaviyuchol, that's the goal. It says K'moy Baal Melucha. See, he uses my example, just not as contemporary. It's like a Baal Melucha, like a person that's making, a person that's a iman, that's like an artist or a designer. He designs a certain type of a kaili, a certain type of a vessel. And if that vessel is very beautiful, then he has an enjoyment from this, and he has a pleasure from it. And that simcha that Hashem has with us is malibish in the mitzvahs, in the sense that since the mitzvahs, like we said, are the vehicle how Hashem expresses Himself, so therefore when Hashem is besimcha, that will reflect itself in the mitzvahs. Because the mitzvahs are the achdas kaviyuchol, because the mitzvahs are the ivrei hamelech. If a person is on that level, he can do the mitzvahs with true simcha. And the simcha that's not simcha that, I'm getting schar and mahaba, but the simcha is the simcha of the mitzvah itself. Nimtza, when he enters that simcha that's in the mitzvah, he nechnes besimcha HaKadosh Baruch Hu, shemesamayach b'masav. In other words, in that mitzvah itself, kiviyuchol, there's a realm there in that mitzvah that's called simcha. And when a person does the mitzvah b'simcha, he enters that simcha sheba mitzvah. But that simcha sheba mitzvah is the simcha HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the simcha of Hashem Himself. So it's like if the mitzvahs are like pipes or channels flowing with Or Ein Sof, and you enter into them, then you're literally bathing in the Or Ein Sof itself. So you've sort of bypassed everything and connected the Ein Sof that way through the mitzvahs. That when because we had before Yismach Hashem b'masav, now we have Yismach Yisrael b'oisav. The idea is that when the Yidden are b'simcha in the mitzvah, they connect to that same simcha that Hashem has from that mitzvah kiviyuchol, and therefore they're connecting to that pure joy of the Ein Sof, which is a tremendously high level. There's nimtze kisheyesh aizay tsar v'din b'oilam shuna nefesh. Then it comes out that when there's a time of tsar, of difficulty, in the world of oilam shuna nefesh, in the world of space, time, and soul, azay bevadai nigre mit simchas HaKadosh Baruch Hu, kiviyuchol, that reduces Hashem's simcha, Kavyuchel. Hashem, just like Hashem experiences a simcha when we do the roots in Hashem, so Hashem Kavyuchel experiences tsar when things are in discord and not in order. Like it says in Bereshis Parak Vuv, Vayisiyatzev al libo, Hashem was sad to his heart, Kavyuchel. That's of course talking about the Dor HaMabul, the fact that things weren't going Kesidron, the world was going into chaos, was a tsar Kavyuchel for Hashem. And of course, all this again is Kavyuchel, because on the level of the Ein Sof, he's causing all this to manifest in this sense anyways. This goes back into Bechir and Yediyah and the world plan and so on and so forth, the things we've talked about many, many times. But on a simple level, the Rutzin, at least the Rutzin as manifested through Zer Anpin, is that everything should be going Kesidron, everything should be going according to the mitzvahs. And when it is, then Kavyuchel Hashem manifesting through Zer Anpin is in the level of what's it called, is on the level of Simcha, and when not, it's on the level of not Simcha. So that's the idea. And he says, K'moshe Kusev, Shchina ma omer, what does the Shchina say? Koluni meroishi. The Shchina says, my head hurts me, Kavyuchel. This is the idea that the Shchina, Kavyuchel, has tsar from when things aren't going well. And this is when a person is able to enter that simcha in the mitzvah, Yuchel bevade laide lefi inyan hasimcha, is able to see in that simcha, imi koidem gzar din, he's able to see if we're holding in a time that's not yet the gzar din, im hilach gzar din. B'muchel laide, and if he's able to know this, alaizay chaylik mehakoyma nigzar hadin, if he's able to, he's also able to recognize, since all the mitzvahs are parts of the koyma kavyuchel, so he's able to see where that din is affecting. He knows according to the mitzvahs. If he can't do the heads of the mitzvahs b'simcha, he says, "Haine mitzvahs hatliyim b'rosh," which are the mitzvahs that are dependent on the head. So, for example, this will go on the mitzvahs machshava, like Ahavas Hashem and Yiras Hashem, the mitzvahs tmidias, and this would go also on the mitzvah of tefillin, which is in the head, and so on and so forth. It would go on the mitzvahs associated with the rosh. And he sees that there's something there that's blocking him from having a true simcha in that aspect of the mitzvah. So then Yuda Shadin Nigzal Rushe Oilam Shuna Nefesh, and he knows that Gzar Din is on the level of the rush of the levels of soul, space, and time. So in other words, in the sense that you can see there's some kind of a pagam on that level. And you can know that that's where the Gzair is. And so do with all the other mitzvahs. So Nachman's telling us here about a tremendously high thing, about how like tzaddikim like the Arizal and the Baal Shem Tov and Rebbe Nachman himself were able to or others, there's so many different masters like this tzaddikim, were able to tap in that there's a certain type of a Gzar Din, and exactly what it's affecting comes from this level of being connected to the mitzvahs on such a deep way and being so sensitive to their energies and seeing if that energy is being stopped up and not being able to shine forth. This is what Chazal say, B'Shabbos Zachrayi Me'echad B'Shabbos. So the idea of remembering Shabbos is already from Sunday already. He says, "Hainis simchas v'tanig olam haba." So he explains the idea is that this idea of simcha and tanig olam haba, he begins Shabbos, which represents Shabbos. We say the Shabbos is me'en olam haba. Yargish b'shayshis ma'amasi. A person can feel the simcha of Shabbos during the week. And this is, and just like a person can have from Sunday, he starts buying food, Likutei Shabbos, getting all excited about that coming Shabbos already, right? So too, a person can, even be'olam hagashmi, be'olam hazeh, already get into that mood of olam haba, like I mentioned, because olam haba is constantly coming, and so too the Shabbos is constantly coming in the entire week. So you can connect the Shabbos even on Sunday, and you can connect olam haba even be'olam hazeh. Shehen bechin this maseh mitzvah, which is the idea of the actions of the mitzvahs. Shebehem nivrui olam shana nefesh, which through the mitzvahs everything was created, because the mitzvahs are the ivrim of the melech, and all the olamas were created through the zayin meluchim, through the 7 lower spheres of Atzilus, which is the Zer Anpin and Nikva of Atzilus. That's what had the Shrius Akayim. That's created the lower worlds. So all the lower worlds, both in time and in space and in Rachni, those worlds were created through the ivrim of the melech. So the mitzvahs themselves are by definition the construction of the worlds themselves. This idea that you give schar in its time, this is talking about when you have a worker, you should give him his wages every day. she's schurei mea mitzvahs ba'atzma, which means the schar should be now b'yoymoy. It shouldn't be Lois ad Lovoy that we're waiting for schar. The schar should be right now in the mitzvah itself. V'loy tuvay ulav hashemesh. You shouldn't wait. Shouldn't let the sun go down without paying the person the schar that he owes, that you owe him. This idea, don't wait for elam haba's schar. Shlo yaseh mitzvah b'schar elam haba. She achar bias shimshoy achar moisa, which is after the sunset, which is after death. Don't wait for that, but get the schar of the mitzvah, get that pleasure of the mitzvah right now. Okay, so I think that we're going to stop here. And this is about half of the mamar, maybe a little bit less. And let's play it by ear. I would like to finish this piece before Pesach, because once we have the Pesach break already, then, then afterwards you're not going to remember the first part of it. So let's see if next Sunday is good for a shir. Email me if it's not, and then maybe we could try to make one maybe later this week instead to finish it up, so can be finished before Pesach. Okay? And the next year is the Zohar shir, which is going to be tonight at 9:30. So I'm gonna send out the code to log into that, and there we're gonna continue the Zohar that we were discussing last week, which is very interesting about the idea of Shmiras Bris and Dibber, and how to speak and how speech affects Shmiras Bris and so on and so forth. So that should be interesting. I'll be at 9:30 today, and again, like I mentioned before, I'll send out an email. I want to say the members Metzulas together at some point, and some point later this week. So I'll send an email about that. Let me know if you have any preferred time for that.
Rabbi, this is Chaim Oliver.
Yeah.
I just want to give you Haporos Latov. These shiurim, the two of them, are bringing such light to my Sunday evening. Please continue. This is wonderful. My wife and I were listening, and we really feel a tremendous aliyah from your efforts. So, gross yeshkoyach, Rabbi.
Yeah, thank you so much. Shkoyach for all of you for being part of it. And yeah, thank you so much. And hopefully we'll be able to start doing them in person, B'ez Hashem, soon again. But for now, it's what it is.
Yeah.
Everyone should be healthy and gesund and stark, and everyone should be mechazik yourself with shirim. And, it never hurts to say Tilim, say Pitim Aktoiris, which is page 3 to 15 in the tikkun that I sent out. And yeah, so I'll see everyone, or whoever's available tonight at 9:30. Okay, everyone's gesund, kol tov.